In topic 4.7, we're going to write and graph quadratic equations in vertex form. In this video, we're just going to focus on converting an equation from standard form to vertex form. You've seen standard form before, that's the ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, vertex form is a different way of writing these functions, but it actually makes it easier to create the graphs. So this form is a times x minus h squared plus k, where hk is the vertex. Now, here I have an example of how to convert it. Your first step is to find that vertex using the formula negative b over 2a, which we used before. Once you get your vertex, you already know your a, your h, and your k, because your h and your k are the x and y values from your vertex. From there, you'll plug a, h, and k into the formula for vertex form. Now, if you notice in the formula, it has a minus h and a plus k. So basically, whatever your h is, you're going to change it. Like if it's positive, you'll write a negative. If it's negative, you'll write a positive. Whatever your k is, you'll keep it. Here, let's look at an example. So we're just going to write these equations in vertex form using the steps I just discussed. So our first step here is to find the vertex. So I'm going to label my A, B, and C, and I'm going to plug into the formula x equals negative b over 2a to find my vertex. Here, two negatives become positive. So my x value for my vertex is 5. Now I'm going to plug that in everywhere I see an x. Here, 5 squared is 25. If I work this out, I'm going to end up getting 7 for my y value. So my vertex is at 5, 7. Now, I already know my a from earlier. My a was the 1. My h and k come from my vertex. So my h is 5, my k is 7. Now, later we're going to ask the direction of opening. We already know this one opens upward because the a here is positive. So remember your a, the number in front of x squared, that always tells you if it's going to be going up or down based on whether it's positive or negative. So now that we know the vertex, we're going to plug into the formula for vertex form. So for a, I'm plugging in a 1. Remember, h, you change it. K, you keep it. So my h here is 5, so I'm going to change it to a negative 5. And my k is 7. I keep that. So it's going to become, or stay a positive 7. And then just remember your 1 can be imaginary. So this would be my equation written in vertex form. And again, we wanted to identify the vertex, axis symmetry, and direction of opening. Well, we already said our vertex is 5, 7. Our axis of symmetry is the x from the vertex. So it's going to be x equals 5. And our direction of opening comes from that a value. So since our a was positive 1, this one's positive, so it's going to open upward. Let's look at our next example. So I'm going to label my A, my B. Here there's no C, that just means it's 0. And I'm going to plug that into the formula negative b over 2a so I can find my vertex. Now I'm plugging it negative 3 in everywhere. I had an x so that I can find my y value for my vertex. Negative 3 squared is 9. So my vertex is going to be at negative 3, negative 9. So now I know my H and my K, and we already knew our A from earlier. So my A is 1, my H is -3, my K is -9. Since my A is a +1, I already know it's going to open upward. Now we're going to plug this into the formula for vertex form. So my A is 1. Remember, for H, you change it. So instead of -3, I'm going to put a +3. And for K, you keep it. So it's going to stay on -9 at the end there. And that one can be imaginary. So x plus 3 squared minus 9. Now I'm just going to label my vertex, axis of symmetry, and direction of opening. Our vertex, we had said, was at -3, -9. So our axis of symmetry, which is the x from the vertex, would be x equals -3. And our direction of opening, which is based on our A value, since our A was a +1, would be opening upward. Now, if we look at the next example, I'm going to label my A, B, and C. And I'm going to plug into my formula for the vertex, -b/2a. Here I have -16/2 times -4. So I get a +2. So I'm going to plug in a +2 everywhere I see an x in the original formula. 2 squared is 4. 16 times 7 is 112. Here I get -16 plus 112 minus 11. If you work that out, comes out to an 85. So my vertex is at 285. So this would be my H and K, and our A earlier we said was -4. So now I'm ready to plug those in to the formula for vertex form. And since my A is negative here, we know that this is going to be opening downward for later when we answer that question. So it's -4. Remember your H, you change it. So instead of +2, I'm going to write down a -2. And your K, you keep it. So I'm going to keep that +85. And that's my equation in vertex form. Our vertex, we had already said, was at 285. So our axis of symmetry is going to be at x equals 2. And our direction of opening for this one is going to be downward because the A was a -4. So that number in front of x squared, again, always shows you how it's going to open based on the sign. So the steps to convert to vertex form are always the same. You're going to start by labeling A, B, and C and finding that vertex using the formula x equals -b/2a. Once you find your vertex, you're going to label your A, H, and K. Remember, your H, you change it. Your K, you keep it. And plug it into that formula for vertex form.